not everybody who has a preference is colorist, but a lot of people who are colorists use the I have a preference to justify their colorism. Oh, your black is okay, like you're not too dark, because that's not a compliment, that's actually an insult. What do you mean, like my black is okay? Like, what do you mean? Is your head okay? Are you alright? Is your suit alright? I will never be anyone's second choice. Never. And I will never be with anyone that makes me feel like I'm the second choice. If you don't make me feel like I'm the most beautiful woman in the room, then what are we doing? Why are we here? So one pay me out from me so by force. Why by force. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am the lovely London girl, and in today's video I'll be talking about how you can spot a colorist person. It could be either someone you're dating or someone you're just talking to and considering dating. And when you're dating someone, it can be very difficult to know them and to find out who they really are, because obviously people like to put on their best side when they're dating, and it's only after some time that you realize that they weren't who they say they are, or they're even better or they're even worse. You just never know. And time reveals all things. So I just want you to have a look and see some of these red flags, and hopefully it can steer you in the right direction when you're kind of picking someone to date or to deal with. So yeah, I hope these tips help, and if you do like it, make sure you like, share, comment and subscribe, and let's get started. So before we get into the whole signs of a colorist person, I want to define what colorism is, and I have it written here. This is kind of like my personal definition, as well as kind of bits that I've taken from other places. And so I would define colorism as the preferential treatment of light-skinned people based on the perception that they are better or more beautiful or more intelligent because they have more European features or look more European. And colorism is all purely based on white supremacy, and white supremacy is just the notion that white people are supreme and are better and on top of everybody else purely because they are white. So that's pretty much simply what colorism is. There are many people who have more simple definitions or other definitions, but it is simply the better treatment of other people based on the fact that they are lighter skinned. And it's not just in the black community, it happens in the Asian community also. It happens in even the European countries. Some white people have dark skin, but they feel the need to lighten up and to like do other things to appear more European, or maybe appear more Aryan, which is blue-eyed and blonde-haired, etc., more pure. So, colorism does exist in other cultures as well. It's not just the black community. But I feel as though just the fact, just because of history, black people are presented in media in a certain way, and it seems we're always portrayed to be worse than any other race, I feel like. And so it appears that it's only in our culture, but trust me, I have Indian friends who talk about it and who, do all sorts of things with their pictures to make themselves appear lighter. And it's not because, necessarily they want to, it's because they know that that's going to be better received on social media and better received in the community. So yeah, so that's what my definition of colorism would be. So I'm going to go into, I guess, 3 key signs which will tell you that someone is colorist. And firstly, you have to look at what the person says. Now, initially I said what he says, because most of the time, colorism is perpetuated from men when it comes to the dating scene. But of course, I know women can be just as colorist. It's not just a man thing. So I'm gonna try it and be like gender neutral in my kind of video. If I say he or she, just know that I meant either or, and I'm not just pointing at one gender. So you have to first look at what they say, and I just have some notes here, so if you see me glancing down, that's just because I'm looking at my notes, and I hope it doesn't annoy you. There are some key colorist terms that people always tend to throw out there to kind of defend their colorism. And if you think about colorism as an institution, it's one that the beneficiaries are so comfortable at receiving all the praise and all of the adoration that very few of them are ever willing to shake up the institution. It's just like racism. People who benefit from racism do not really want to shake up the system because they benefit so much from it. Imagine being the beneficiary of a trust, but you knew that there was a clause that meant that more people could get money to that trust. You're going to be less inclined, if you're not a very good person or kind person, you're going to be less inclined to want to expose that clause to allow more people to get money, because it means that you'll get less money, and that's just human nature in general. We tend to look out for ourselves, and so people that benefit from colorism and racism, they're less inclined to shake up the system. And so really the responsibility falls on us. Unfortunately, the victims, although I don't class myself as a victim in terms of colorism, I guess as a dark-skinned person, I would be classed as a victim if it ever was to occur to me. The kind of pressure and responsibility falls on us to kind of switch things up, and then also allies who see the light and then who want to help. Anyway, so it tends to be some kind of terms thrown out there where people kind of justify why they're colorist and to maintain that institution. And one key term, I know you've heard it, is "it's just my preference." Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer here and say that not everybody who has a preference is colorist. Let me just put that out there. Not everybody who has a preference is colorist, but a lot of people who are colorists use the "I have a preference" to justify their colorism. I'm just going to read to you the definition of a preference, and so you can really understand that when people say they have a preference, people who are colorist, they most likely mean that they have an aversion, or they display aversions, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So the definition of preference, according to dictionary, is a greater liking for one alternative over another or others. I'm going to read it again. It's a greater liking for one alternative over another or others. So when you think of a preference, people say I have a preference, it means I like bananas more than I like apples. But what you see a lot of people doing is saying I only go for bananas. And when you only go for something, that's not a preference, because that's not a greater liking or for an alternative over another. That is a complete disregard for apples, and you're saying I only go for bananas, I do not go for apples. So that what people display is an aversion. Now, when you look at the definition of an aversion, it is described as a strong dislike or disinclination. So when you compare preference to aversion, it's clear that those who have a preference like both apples and bananas, but they prefer bananas. Those who have an aversion do not like apples, they only like bananas. And if you look at a lot of the people who use "I have a preference" to justify why they only go for a certain type of person, and you see that their track record of their relationships, they've only dated one kind of person. You can look at Tiger Woods. Now, he has never really come out to say anything about black women that I know of, but he has said some really suspect things about himself, and he doesn't necessarily like to be called black. He says, "I'm not just black, I'm more than just black," you know? And so that alone is an indicator that he has an issue within his own self, and that tends to be the root of all self-hating people. And I don't like to use the word self-hating because it's a bit weird, but that tends to be the issue with a lot of people who display colorist tendencies. They have an issue with their own self, and that's why they project that on other people who look like them. Yeah, so when you see people who say they have a preference and you look at their track record and it's always the same type of person, the same type of look, the same type of skin shade, you know that they're not actually displaying a preference, but they're rather displaying an aversion. I just want to say another disclaimer: not all people that have a preference are colorists, but a lot of people who are colorists use the preference excuse to justify their colorism. So I just want you to watch out, guys and girls, and just see, just maybe find out about who they've dated in the past. Maybe bring it up casually, like,
"Oh, so what's your usual type? What kind of girls do you normally go for?"
And if they say,
"Oh, you know what, I don't really go for dark-skinned people,"
then you can say, oh, laugh it off and be like,
"Oh, okay, that's interesting. So what made you pick me?"
Make them feel comfortable, and then they're more than likely to open up to you. And I was watching this video by Chrissy, and she was speaking about this, so some of my points are influenced from her video as well. Just make them feel comfortable enough to open up, and then let them speak to you, let them say their truth, and then when you go home, you decide whether you want to continue with them. Don't lash out and get all crazy or political, because that doesn't do anything for you. Unfortunately, the stereotype is against you most of the time as a darker skinned person, especially as a dark skinned black woman. You know, play it off, ask them, and then based on what his answer is, you'll know whether you want to continue or not. But that's one key thing to look out for, and I thought it was quite interesting to note. So some of these examples for what he says are things that I've heard. So like, for example, people will be like, oh, I like your shade of black, you know, you're not too black, you're not too dark. Okay, so what's too dark? Now, of course, if you look at me, I'm not the darkest shade of black. There are many more beautiful dark brown shades after me. I know what they're trying to say. Your dark is the acceptable dark. Now, this is not to attack lighter skinned people or people with lighter skin, because it's not their fault. They were born the way they were born. It's not their fault. The only thing is that when they know what's going on and they don't want to help and they want to maintain the system, because as I said before, they benefit from the system, that's when it sucks and it becomes like difficult. But there are many people out there who do want to assist and like change the narrative and expose like colorism for what it is, who benefit from it. So don't go out there like hating every like light-skinned or white person, because that will just make you angry and it's for no reason. So yeah, just watch out for those people who say stuff like, oh, your black is okay, like you're not too dark, I think, you know, like you're just okay, I can deal with you kind of thing. Because that's not a compliment, that's actually an insult. What do you mean, like my black is okay? Like, what do you mean? Is your head okay? Are you alright? Is your suit alright? Also, if the person says, oh, you're not my usual type, I tend to go for like lighter skinned people, like, you know, it's like, it's rare for me to like date a dark skinned person. Is that meant to be a compliment? Is that meant to be a compliment? Do you want me to now start singing and dancing and praising God because now you decided to date a dark skinned person? I understand, like, it's not a privilege. Like, you're a privilege to be with me. You know, you gotta have self-confidence, but it's not. So you want me to feel privileged because you decided to now date a dark skinned person? I'm not your usual type. What is your point in telling me? Like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to now say, oh, thank you, I didn't know you didn't date dark skinned people, thank you so much? So yeah, I would say watch out for people who say stuff like that. Do not settle for people who will talk to you like that and treat you like that and make you feel like you're the second choice. You are never anyone's second choice. This is now to everybody, whether you're white watching this, light skin, dark skin, whoever you are watching this, you are never anyone's second choice. Do not let anybody make you feel like you are their second choice. It will never be that. There be that. Never will I be anyone's second choice. And this is not me being cocky, it's just me being confident. And especially coming from somewhere where I didn't have self-esteem and a lot of confidence in the past. I've had to build this. This is like life that has taught me to build this. I will never be anyone's second choice. Never. And I will never be with anyone that makes me feel like I'm the second choice. If you don't make me feel like I'm the most beautiful woman in the room, then what are we doing? Why are we here? Because me, as I am now single, I'm happy. But why would I now go and join myself to you and now you're making me more miserable than I was when I was by myself? It doesn't make sense. It does not compute. So yeah, watch out for people who will try and bring you down and make you feel worse about yourself than you already did or than you did when you were single. It's just not worth it. And now the second kind of signs to look for is the things that they do. Now, if they constantly compare you to women who do not look like you, then sister, we have to sit down and really address the situation. Either address it with him and say,
you know what, I realise you're always comparing me to women who don't look like me, you're comparing me to like this certain type of woman, is that your preferred choice? And then if he says yes, then say, then why are you with me? And if he doesn't give you a satisfactory answer, you make the decision to go. But also, in general, no one, man or woman, should be making you feel like you should be compared to anybody else. No one should be comparing you to anybody else. So that's just a general thing across any like relationship or situation. And by force. And by force. So one premier from Misoko. So one premier from Misoko. Me by force. Why me pe force me pe by force nyama. Also, if your partner doesn't necessarily praise or compliment the way you look, so they never like praise, if you have natural hair for example, and they never like compliment your natural hair, then there's an issue. If only when you wear weave or more Eurocentric looking hairstyles, that's when they compliment you, you've got a problem. If maybe
the way your natural nose is, they don't really like compliment you. But when you start doing contour, nose contour, highlight, and then you start to chisel up your nose, that's when they compliment you, you've got a problem. If your partner in general doesn't even like the way you look naturally, you've got a problem. Because the person that you're with should be able to accept you with or without makeup. I think there's this meme that says, if you can't accept me with my 4C hair and no makeup on, then you don't deserve me with my weave and my makeup on, or something like that. And it's true. If you can't appreciate me for my raw natural self when I'm not looking my 100% best, I'm just looking my natural self, then you don't deserve me when I am able to look that way and like dress up all nice and look after myself and take care of myself, you know? If you don't feel like they are appreciating your natural look, especially if you have naturally phenotypically African features, and you feel like the only time they actually give you props for your looks and compliments is when you're wearing the weave, you contoured up your nose and so it looks slimmer, or you know, you just look like a totally different person when you finish doing your makeup, and that's the only time they're complimenting you. And this is just a general one, this is not even to do with colorism per se, but if that's the only time they're complimenting you, then you've got an issue. You've got a big fat issue. And also if they're comparing you to other girls, oh, why don't you do your hair like this, or why don't you look like this, like, oh, when you get that curly hair, don't get it too kinky, like make sure you get the loose curls, you know what I mean? If they're trying to control the way you look and engineer it so it looks like a particular type of girl, then you've got an issue, and you need to either address that with them or decide whether you want to stay or not. In my personal opinion, I wouldn't stay with somebody who was trying to make me someone that I wasn't. Because if you didn't want me the way I am, then just leave. Why try and change who I am when you can just leave and find somebody else who is already what you're looking for? Do you know what I mean? Okay, so the final like kind of sign to look for is his response to colorism, or to like colorism like topics and debates. Like if you were to like sit down and talk to him, and this could be someone of a different race, by the way, just like even if you're black, your black boyfriend or partner could be colorist, your white partner could be colorist. Colorism affects all people. White men can be colorist just as much as black men, so it's not just or Asian men, it's not just a ethnic thing, it's a worldwide thing. So if you sit down and you're talking and you're like, oh, like, what do you think about this? Like, what do you think about like the celebrities who like always talking about dark-skinned women? Or what do you think about this and that? Why, like, what do you think about Indian women bleaching their skin just so they can get married and stuff? And then they're just like, they have no opinion about it, or they just don't care. Or if you're like, oh, you know what someone said to me today, or oh, do you know what, this really pissed me off. How can this person be saying that about dark-skinned people, like a whole group of people? And then they're just like, oh, you probably misunderstood them, or oh, you probably didn't mean it like that, or you're just being too sensitive. If they are not taking colorism like seriously, and like your concerns about it seriously, then there's an issue. I'm not saying that doesn't necessarily mean they're colorist, but more than likely, if someone's not offended by something, then they're probably a part of the problem. And it's the same thing with racism. Like, if you're not offended by racism, then you're part of the system. That's just, it's as simple as that. If you're silently complicit, you don't speak up against these things, even in a conversation to your friends or to your partner, and you let them know that, hey, I don't actually agree with this, and I know it sucks, but yeah, I'm here with you, I stand with you with this, it really doesn't make sense, it really isn't cool. You want to be with somebody, well, I would want to be with somebody who whenever I spoke about things to do with racism or colorism, that it was well received and it wasn't just ignored or swept underneath the carpet. I can't stand ever like having a conversation with someone and you can just tell they're not interested, whether it pertains to you personally or not. If I'm talking about it and you're like trying to date me, or you know, we're dating or whatever, and you just have no interest, that's automatically a switch off. It's lock off. Because I need to be able to intellectually engage with somebody and learn from somebody and bounce back with somebody. And if they switch off only when I talk about race issues or colorism issues, for me personally, that's a problem. Also, someone who you're dealing with or someone who you're dating should be able to accept you and all of you, including all the issues that you will have to face in your life. Now, if you are white and you're dating someone black, you will have to accept that they will come home one day and talk about how they were mistreated at work or on the street somewhere because of their blackness. Vice versa. any combination you want to do it, you have to accept the fact that if you're dating someone who has a disability, for example, and they might be discriminated against on the public transport or on the street, you have to deal with the fact that might come home one day and have a story about how they were discriminated against or mistreated out in public, and you can't just shut them down, because when you were starting, you accepted that you would be with this person and you would commit to this person and all of this person, including all of their issues that might come along. So it's not just now that things are getting rough, and now when I want to talk about colorism and racism, now you want to shut off. For me, that's a big fat problem. And so that's like the third and final sign I have for you guys, for you to kind of tell whether that person is colorist or whether that person just doesn't care about colorism and dismantling it as well. Because you want to be with somebody that cares about what you care about as well, or cares about the things that are affecting you. And so that's it, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope you got something out of this. And I don't want all my videos to be about colorism, but as a dark-skinned person with a very small platform, I feel the need to address it sometimes. And when I have something to say, why not just say it? And I hope that it helps one person at least, you know, have some clarity about their future and dating and everything else like that, because it is really a big concern, you know. And it really sucks that if I'm walking down the street and I see a really handsome guy, I have to think, but does he like black girls? And not even black girls, does he like dark-skinned black girls, you know? And that's for white people, that's for black people. You know, that question really applies to everybody now, because you just never know. And it really sucks, but it's true. And it happens on a daily basis, and I know I'm not the only person who thinks like this, and I know I'm not the only person who questions themselves like this, because I have friends who say they also do, and it bloody sucks. And so I hope that this video helps at least one person, and if it did, comment down below, like, share, subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next one. And just remember to no matter what you look like, no matter where you come from, no matter what your name is, what your culture is, what your hair texture is, what your ability level is, you are beautiful, and you are loved, and you are valued, and you are cherished. And someone who you want to date should treat you just like that. And if they don't treat you just like that, you need to leave. You need to kick them to the curb. I will see you in my next one. Love yourself and be free. Mwah.